I'm Kyle Buck. I'm a junior at BHS, and students may have heard a rumor that Sabrina Westdijk, the new principal, is switching the grading system from a traditional-based grading system to standards-based grading system. We wanted to see what this meant for the students, the teachers, and the community surrounding BHS.
Okay, so proficiency and standards-based grading tends to be used interchangeably. They're more or less the same thing. And what that means is, instead of, say, grading for weighted categories, like here's your summative tasks, and here's homework, and here's quizzes, and it's weighted this much, and I'm going to assign everything a point value of, like, say, 0 to 100, it all averages together, and you get an F through an A. Proficiency-based grading can sometimes result in an F through an A grade, but it's not around averaging anymore or assigning grades for small tasks. It's around making sure that every task relates to a very clear standard or multiple standards, and then a student is assessed based on their level of mastery of those specific skills. And then at the end of a semester or the end of a year, when all is said and done, based on what the student can do by the end of the year, a grade is issued by what they've mastered. That it's nice because it allows you to make mistakes while learning. In a proficiency-based system, I'm not penalized for messing up at the beginning of the year. The idea is, did I get it by the end? You get much more accurate real-time information around what a student actually knows and can do. Proficiency-based grading is really around skills. It's not around work habits. So right now in our traditional system, work habits are averaged together with academic skills. I might be really strong in skills, but I've got a lot of work to do to show up as a student. I'm constantly running late, I'm missing a lot of class, but when I show up, I really deliver on the work. I might look like a C student. People are like, oh, they need a lot of work on these skills, when actually I don't. And so proficiency-based grading provides much richer, accurate, actionable data around what learners can do.
We're both wondering about the GPA thing.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, shifting from a traditional grading system to a proficiency-based system is a multi-year process. It is not going to happen next year.
Okay.
Many schools, high schools in Vermont, have shifted to a proficiency-based system,
Okay.
but in a hybrid way. Here's proficiency-based grades and courses, and here's how they would translate to a traditional GPA system. Universities are familiar with so many grading systems, not just nationally, but internationally. And that proficiency-based system is a whole new set of rules for engagement, right? And that is startling. And so that's why when any district makes that shift, for so many reasons, it's many years in the making. And a proficiency-based system tries to take the focus off of a letter grade, like that carrot and stick mentality, and focus much like, what do you actually know how to do that you'll take with you out into the world? And you've all seen this, right? You go to various classes and different categories are weighted differently from department to department, class to class within departments. And then you look at that across schools and states, right? Like, what does a 3.6 GPA even mean anymore? What does an A plus even mean, or a C minus even mean? It could mean 1,000 different things based on how grades are calculated. It's not to say that things like work habits don't matter. They do, and anyone who's entered the workforce knows that that is true.
Exactly.
That will catch up with you eventually if you've not developed those skills. But in a proficiency-based system, those two are proficiencies. That's also a valuable skill set, and it can be reported on its own rather than aggregated all together, and that's also then more valuable. But a lot of students, I think, are still entering the next phase of life, not necessarily fully aware of what their own strengths and weaknesses are.
Of course.
Because they get pooled all together, and some of those details get lost over time.
How will you and the faculty go about setting up a system for the switch?
Already at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, the staff got a roadmap of kind of like, what is our multi-year journey?
Okay.
And so first, the important thing to understand is proficiency-based grading is based on standards. So schools have standards from the state, from the federal government, across all of our major content areas that lay out, here's what students should be learning at each grade level, K through 12, to be ready for whatever comes next, whatever path they choose. So we align like what are we going to focus on in terms of what are the most essential skills for this grade in this course. Then teachers work to develop proficiency scales. That's usually that 1 through 4 scale that makes up like the backbone of a proficiency grading system. And it's not defined by like what students can't do. It's at a 1, a student is doing this. At a 2, they're doing this, but also this. And it essentially, like, it gets longer and longer.
Right.
A proficiency-based system, the goal is to no longer use school as a sorting system of who are excellent students and who is not. A mastery-based system, the goal is for all students to master things, recognizing that some students will need more opportunities and more time than others. It's tough when you start with that kind of system because a 4 on a proficiency scale is where you're supposed to be by the end of the year. And for students who've always been A students and view themselves as that, it can be like a rude awakening at the beginning of the year in a proficiency-based system. Like, what do you mean I got a 2? I'm an A student. That can be a huge shock. It's like a culture shock.
Big time.
And then it's the teaching, and this is where the education piece comes in. It's so important for students and families is it's a 2 right now because every single assignment we do is a snapshot of what you can do right now. Remember, it's not an average. You're not going to be punished for this 2 right now. The goal is by the end of the year, you're able to get here.
How are like the students really going to be able to like shift from that mindset? Like, how will they be able to change in like a year just between traditional and proficiencies?
Yeah, so it's not usually some sort of cold turkey shift. This is not a thing that one person in an office drives and like, this is what we're gonna do.
Of course.
It's but some people do think that way. That's not how I think. I think that it's going to have to be a very collaborative, responsive project that reads the room and sees like what is the appropriate pace. It's going to have to constantly kind of check the temperature and see like where are we at and where do we need to pivot or make adjustments. I do think there are so many benefits for learners in a school system in making this shift. In the end, it's not for me about like we need to burn down the traditional report card system or the GPA. It's how do we get information that we need for learners and staff so we can support learners in mastering concepts and skills. The mission of school shouldn't be to sort people into winners and losers. And that to me is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this other system. And I've been in it before. I've seen how it works. I've seen the difference it makes for students who have not been successful in the old game of school. Our role is to set up everyone so that they are empowered and we are not playing an active role in closing doors for people. And we need to do something differently because we are not providing enough of our students the opportunities that we need. And our data shows that. So it really is about going back to and reigniting something that this building had been committed to before.
Well, thank you for your time.